Today, we are going to answer one of the most asked questions that you find in hobby groups. What army do I pick?
My name is Tanya, otherwise known as the War Mistress. I've painted some minis, I've played some games, and I'm on a mission to be nice and roll dice.
We are back for another episode of Be Nice and Roll Dice, and I'm here today with JT, one of my new friends. I'm going to call you one of my new friends. We've been talking a lot lately. Yay! And we're going to talk about tips for choosing your first Warhammer army. But before we get into that, why don't you explain what it is that you do and where people might have heard you or seen you from before?
You may not have seen me. You might if you've been paying attention to our channel, Play on Tabletop. But I am the voice from the Outer Worlds, the narrator, the scriptwriter, the guy who does all of the cool commentary for our YouTube channel, Play on Tabletop, where we're disrupting the system. We produce battle reports in 40 minutes that normally would play out in 3 hours, and we give you all the highlights, and we talk to the players, and we show you all the fun stuff. So that's me, and that's what I do. But I've been playing this game for 35 years.
That's a really long time. Not to make you feel old or anything, but that's
No, not at all.
older than that's older than I've been on this planet. So.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Ouch. Ouch.
But I just wanted to say that your battle reports, I really love them because they are concise. I don't have like 3 hours to sit down and like actually watch a battle report, so being able to get the highlights and like the fun moments and stuff, it's a format that I really like, and obviously it's resonating with other people too because you guys have had some crazy wild success with your channel over the past, is it 3 years, 2 years?
This is start of year 3.
Start of year 3.
And yeah, and we hit 100,000 subs last November, I think it was October, November, which is a pretty big milestone for us.
Yeah,
we were ahead of schedule as far as we thought. But we produce something that is digestible content. I like 3-hour battle reports. I still think they have a really great place in the hobby. I think it's important. We're standing on the shoulders of titans. Tabletop tactics, mini wargaming. These guys have been doing this a long time, and their 3-hour battle reports, their long form reports are great. You can sit, you can paint, you can watch, you can back it up if you need to. That's fantastic. But if you want to be on your lunch break or on your drive time, on your commute, not using your phone while you're driving, people, be the passenger. But if you want to digest some 40K content and get a game in, that's what our goal is to give you something that you can see, that beginners can pick up, that the jargon might not be there so much, some detail, some strategy, but yeah, it's something new and different, and we're having a lot of fun with it, and we're glad that people like it. So
And I thought that you'd be perfect to bring on for this next topic because in a lot of the comments and in the live chat on your videos, you see a lot of people saying like, I haven't played yet, or I want to get started and I'm not really too sure where to start. And with your experience on the channel and your experience within the hobby, I thought you would be perfect for this topic today. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, you're very welcome. Perfect. Oh, what a word. I haven't heard that word in at least 10 minutes to describe me. I'm kidding. My wife's in the other room right now going, really, pal?
So I just wanted to put a quick caveat in here for the viewers that I want to approach this as we're making this for people who are new to the hobby, but also have intentions of playing the game. If your intention is only to really collect models and paint them, then you can really just start wherever you want, right? There's not too much that you have to think about beyond that. But if you're new and you actually want to play the game, you kind of need to have a little bit of focus, especially if the buy-in is a big concern to you. And I mean, the buy-in is considerable, especially for some armies, which could be another thing that you consider when you're picking your first army. So that's my quick caveat. We're here for the people who really want to play the armies, but at the same time, if you're collecting, you might get some good tips out of this as well.
For sure. That's a good point you bring up. This is not an inexpensive hobby. There are a lot of ways you can cut costs. There's a lot of measures you can take. There's a lot of options you can do, whether it's not completely building kits, whether it's using magnets to swap weapons and such. But it's daunting for someone to say, "Oh, well, what does a 2,000 point army cost?" Well, it depends. Do you want to spend $5,000? Do you want all the Forge World goodness? Or do you want to just have tons and tons and tons of orc boys? Which then you have to paint them. That's another thing altogether. But it's so it can be a little scary to go, how much money am I gonna waste, if you will? And I air quoted. I can't believe I did that. But it's a big deal for a lot of people. They get overwhelmed by it. I mean, I look when I started, and there was like nothing. There was Rogue Trader, which was a hardcover and then a soft cover. Ooh, the soft cover was like $35. That was so much more affordable for like 14-year-old me or 12-year-old me. Um, but I look at it then and I'm like, there was a couple of kits, there was metal models, there was no giant units. And when Plastic Space Marines came out, oh my goodness. What a game changer. I can get a box with all these guys in it for like $30. Whoa! And that was a mind blower.
Mhm.
So it has changed so much now. Like if I walk into a Games Workshop or a game shop and I knew nothing about the hobby, I want to play Warhammer, I might cry. There are so many choices, so it can be
Mhm.
very, very confusing. That's for sure.
Mhm. Did you want to talk about your first army and what it was like back then, or
Oh
was there?
wow, sure, yeah.
You said that like plastic space marines had just become a thing. Was there like a variety of choices? What did you end up choosing?
My buddy was a big Space Marine fan, and I remember when the Terminators came out and playing against them on my basement floor, and I think I was playing my Eldar, and Terminators were absolutely bonkers good then. They're not like they are now. They're not as in game terms, they're not as good as they used to be because of course, new models, new product, new rules, make it better. But Terminators were just nuts. They were almost unkillable. And I'm playing with my space elves because at the time, Eldar weren't really fleshed out, and that was my first army was Eldar. In those days, you could have Eldar with jump packs and shuriken cannons and las cannons, and there was tables you rolled on and percentile dice, and it was very 80s Dungeons and Dragons kind of feel to it. And you could build almost what you would call now a kill team, and then you would play your games and away you go. And that was my first army was Eldar, was Space Elves, and I still love them. I came back to the hobby probably fourth or fifth edition. I played and played and played in between little games and stuff, but then fourth, fifth edition, I came back with orcs, and I have a massive orc collection. I don't even know what it points out to now. 15,000 plus points of orcs, 20,000 maybe, I don't know, but that got a buddy of mine into it who now owns his own game store
Nice.
because he got so excited into it, and he now carries Games Workshop product. But I got back into it with orcs, and then the Dark Eldar kit came out in fifth edition, and I went, "Oh, this feels so familiar." Found all my old models, and then I have tons of the old ones. So the evil space elves have always held a place in my heart. Exodites, the whole Corsair concept, the Eldar space pirate. That was my first introduction, and I loved it with the big conical heads and the silly little wings on their backs. I absolutely love them. I love the aesthetic because it has like it has not so much a Frazetta-esque, which is more the muscular space marine thing,
Mhm.
but it has like a Mobius kind of cool European sci-fi feel to it, and I fell in love with them, and I still love them. I still play my Dark
Yeah.
Eldar almost exclusively.
Yeah.
How about you?
My first army was Chaos Space Marines. Uh, and I didn't really have like my experience obviously is a little bit different coming into the hobby as an adult, and coming into it with being shown it by a friend who is now my husband. And that friend had like everything. So I just sort of like sat down and like asking questions. Well, like what's this, and he's like, well, these guys are the bad guys, right? And like they're like the ones who stick it to the man. And I was like, yeah, yeah, I like to stick it to the man. That sounds like my thing, right? So there was like a starter box. It was in seventh edition, so there's like the starter box
Hmm.
that had like the easy build, like Hellbrute and stuff like that in it. So I had like that half, and I painted a few things. They turned out okay, um, but I hated painting the trim. I hated painting all of that like spiky metallic trim, and like it was
Oh
just such a
yeah.
chore painting those models. And I played a few games and I just didn't really like it. It could have just been because it was seventh. I'm not entirely sure, but like it just didn't feel like a good fit, and I might maybe was feeling a little bit salty because I didn't like painting all the trim. But yeah, I can tell you the model that I
The
painted,
specific
the
model?
specific model that I knew that this was not the army for me. And it was the oh, what is it? We always called it the hell turkey.
The Helldrake.
That's it. Yeah, the like fucking
Oh,
flying thing. And I
yes.
was like, I'm not painting another thing with trim. I finished
That
it.
model,
I finished
oh,
it. It's horrible.
there's so much gold trim on that model. If you paint it to the box, that's 2 air quotes. Wow. If you paint it to the box art, it has so much gold trim that yeah, I probably would have thrown it against the wall.
No, no, I
I'm,
finished
I'm,
it.
did you?
I finished
Oh,
it.
I know. I threw mine against the wall. Oh,
No, no,
I'm
I
not
finished
kidding.
it. I kept it
Wow. Good for
because
you.
I was like, okay, first off, I hated every minute of this, and like, I need the reminder. I need the reminder to never play Chaos Space Marines ever, or at least like not paint them. But like, in the event that I decide that I want to do this again, I know I'm never painting another one of these models. So it's sitting on my shelf, like behind there. You can't see it, but it is sitting there
Yeah.
as a reminder of my very first army, and like what a mistake it actually was to choose that. And at the time, like, it wasn't that big of a financial investment, just because I had like bought the easy fit starter box models or whatever. But it was still like,
Yeah.
it still kind of felt bad to like put a bunch of effort into it and then find out that it wasn't the right fit for me. And I wish that a video like this maybe would have existed back then, so that I could maybe take a good hard look at myself and what I wanted out of the game and then make choices accordingly. So,
Yeah, that's a
over.
good point. These videos definitely didn't exist when I started. Nothing like
No.
this existed. What was the
No.
internet? It made screeching noises.
Kids
Yeah, that
these
was the
days will
internet.
never know.
Exactly. Somebody makes a phone call and kicks me off the bulletin board that I've been on for the last 10 minutes trying to
Yeah.
download a single picture. Oh, it was 30 kilobytes. It was taking forever.
Like
Yeah.
5 songs downloading would take like 2 days. Yeah.
Oh.
You didn't
Oh
download
man.
whole albums. You just picked and chose like which songs you actually wanted.
And then Windows never really calculated it right. You'd walk in, it'd be like 362 years or 12 minutes. You didn't know. Windows
Yeah.
didn't know. It just downloaded. Yeah,
Yeah. Good times. Good times. The
for
wild
sure.
the wild west of the internet.
Yeah,
Um
sure.
so I was sort of sitting down and thinking about it, and because the hobby is so multifaceted, it kind of requires a multifaceted approach if you're a new player to look at all of those different aspects of the hobby and think about yourself and sort of sit introspectively with it, and put all the pieces together to find something that might fit for you. um, I think that the first thing that we should touch on, though, is, I'm going to do the air quotes, rule
Yay.
of cool, because
Yes.
you hear this a lot, in forums, they don't exist anymore, in discords,
Yes.
in Facebook groups, in your local area. You're going to hear this term, rule of cool, and maybe we should define that for you if you are brand new to the hobby, because it might not mean anything to you. Do you want to explain maybe what rule of cool is?
It's it's kind of a fuzzy one too, because my rule of cool isn't going to be your rule of cool. And that's, I think, what the brilliance of the Warhammer hobby is. I like a specific aesthetic. I like a specific look, and that works for me. And I like that look, and I'm fortunate that I can make it play the way I want to.
Mm-hmm.
Some guys like giant robots. Some girls like big tanks. Some people like tons and tons of orcs running across the board. It really doesn't matter what you think is cool. It's what you think is cool that's important. You don't want to have an army just because it was a good deal or because somebody gave it to you and now you're pumping money and time and effort into it. And it's like, boy, these Tau are dumb, or boy, these Chaos Space Marines have too much trim, or I don't want to paint another pink horror if you fricking pay me, Brent Mooney. That's right. I called you out, pal. I'm not doing them again. But it's those things that make you go, I like it and I don't. And part of it is experience. You have to try. You look at it as what's a getting started box now? Like a whole getting started army box is about $100, I think.
I think it might
But
be a
even like
little
just
bit
a
more now, but yeah.
120.
Yeah.
But even some of the smaller kits are 50 and $60. You can buy one of those, and you think about it, a $50 kit, and this is Canadian. I mean, in US, it's probably like 35, $40 maybe, or 12. I guess that's the translation. $50 Canadian,
Yeah.
12. Yeah. But you can get the kit and you can buy some paints and you can put paint on it and you can build the models. And for basically the price of what, do you remember what movies used to be? Those were those big things we used to go to before COVID. And there was like, they had a screen and you'd buy popcorn. Yeah.
Mhm.
That would cost you at least $50 to go see a movie for
Yeah.
2 hours. And building a box of models and painting them up takes you, 10, 12 hours. So
Mhm.
as a dollar cost average for what you get out of it, it's not that bad.
I don't think
So
so
looking at
either.
it like, yeah, it's inexpensive, right? Comparatively.
Mhm.
But then you can kind of try. The key though, I think, is make sure you like it and then see if your local game store will let you play it. See if they
Yes.
have a test army. See if they have something that you can try it out.
Mhm.
Because that's something that I didn't have growing up. Like
Mhm.
when I started the game, it was you bought it and well, maybe you could paint it if you fully painted it, and the guys at the store were like would let you play it because there was that old school elitism that used to exist that especially in the hobby shop. Ugh, shivers. Now completely different. Like
Yeah.
completely different hobby, completely more wide open, so
Yeah.
much more open. And it just makes a difference to be able to try it out. And
Yeah.
that's a big, big difference.
So when you are in those spaces and they say rule of cool, it's kind of not helpful, right? It's helpful if you're collecting, right? Because rule of cool means just like pick what you think looks badass, right? Which is helpful if you're collecting, but if you have intentions of playing, it's only part of the whole equation. It is a good place to start. Obviously, you want to like the things that you're going to be picking, you want them to look awesome. You want to get excited about them when they're actually painted. But yes, so that is what rule of cool means, is like whatever you think is cool, that's what you should go with. But yeah, it's only one part of the situation, right? I thought Chaos Space Marines look cool. I still do. Like Jim Vessel, your Space Marines are amazing. Those Soul Drinkers, holy Dinah. But I know now, and I didn't know then, that I don't want to paint Chaos Space Marines. So that's another thing to look at. Are you a kind of person that likes a lot of ornamentation? Are you a kind of person who likes flamboyant and like, are you a detail-oriented kind of person? Maybe gold trim is for you.
It's not for anybody, trust me. No, it's not for anybody.
Well, for Jim Vessel.
Yeah,
know?
but his Soul Drinkers are just like
They're just regular
converted
Marines.
Marines.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're sneaky chaos.
But he does have Chaos Marines too.
He does.
Yes, and they're
Nurgle,
beautiful.
Death Guard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it makes me sick. I want to paint like that. And he paints so fast
I
too.
know.
Yeah.
I know.
Anyway,
He's a machine. Anyway,
yeah,
we're off topic.
yeah.
But so actually looking at the models and looking at like how detailed they are, you know, that might be something that you need to take into account too. So I think maybe starting with rule of cool and picking a few things that you think look cool, and then you could start like maybe taking some away. Like you said, go to the game store. Sometimes you can go to the game store and sometimes they will actually let you like demo in store. Some of them won't. It depends if you have access to like an actual games workshop or if you have access to a hobby store that does that. But if or maybe you could join like a local Facebook group. Like in my area, we have a really decent like sort of online community, and if you said that you wanted to try painting, I'm sure that almost every single person would find a model for you to try painting, and then you could see what parts of the process you actually enjoy and which parts you don't. Do you have a local sort of Facebook group that
There's
you
a few.
yeah?
Well, BC Wargamers is a pretty big one, and they're not too shabby. A lot of stuff goes on there, but there's also a couple of local shops, and then there's the guys in Play on Tabletop, and then there's my Warhammer 40K team, my competitive team. So between that circle that I have, it's pretty cool. And I mean, I've been playing long enough, and I know enough guys, enough players around the world that if I needed advice or questions, I can ask, which is nice.
Mhm.
And that's another thing too. And you're starting out, just ask. It feels awkward to be asking what you think might be dumb questions, but every single person has been there.
Mhm.
You're staring at a model and you're thinking, okay, I've painted it red. I don't want to paint green because it's going to look like Christmas. How do I not do that? Ask your local Facebook groups, your Discord groups, your chat groups, your local game store page. Most local game stores that are worth their salt have a page or a Discord group that you can go in and you can talk and you can say, hey, I'm looking at this. And if the owners aren't painters, there's probably a couple of really good painters in there, and they're happy to give you that advice. And that helps as a new player because you want your stuff to look cool. There's nothing worse than feeling like you've put a model on the table that looks bad.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
as our friend Scary says, just put paint
Just
on it.
put paint on it.
Oh
Um,
yeah, it's so much better than gray.
and like as people who are into the hobby, most of us have. I'm just gonna actually turn my camera a little bit here. Most of us have collections.
We don't want to turn my camera.
No. Most of us have collections, and most of us have a lot of models that are kind of just like sitting around, waiting to be traded away. And a lot of people will help you out. So if you're like, I kind of want to play Eldar, I'd be like, you know what? I've got an old Eldar model. It's just, it may maybe even in bits or whatever, but I can put something together for you. And you can try painting it and see if you like it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And a lot of people are more than happy to do that for you. Just reach out locally. But yeah, that's my suggestion is if you can get like old models or even somebody to mentor you and sort of talk you through this first process, but actually trying your hand at painting a model is going to be a really great first step to see which parts you like. For me, I hate painting power armor as well. So
Oh, it's so boring.
yeah, right? So
So boring. But I will say this for new players and new painters, contrast paints are magic.
mhm,
They really are.
mhm,
I'm old school. I'm old school heavy metal style, what they call grim, dark, gritty, nasty washes, and it looks like it came out of some kind of 80s Judge Dredd comic book. That's what I like. But I got to tell you that I cheat and I use contrast paints on stuff all the time.
it's not cheating.
Holsters. Well, it feels like cheating because it's so damned easy, but it's literally a type of an ink wash is really all it kind of
Mhm,
is.
mhm,
And it makes it so much easier to do things like holsters, like scabbards, like simple stuff that I don't want to spend a lot of time on because I want to do the
mhm,
face or I want to do the sword, but I got to paint this. So a little snakebite leather on that and boom, I'm done. Maybe a
mhm.
little edge highlight, I'm finished. Like it's so much faster. But
Yeah.
they are incredibly easy to use. And the models are bigger scale now too. So they're actually easier to paint than they used to be.
Mhm.
I mean, I swear that I had to have laser eye surgery because of my miniature paint.
Yeah. Um,
I keep looking at my pile of shame now because you showed
oh,
off yours and I really don't want to.
that's
Like,
only part of it. That's just
okay, so,
orcs.
oh, do you see this? Do you see
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Do you see this?
Are we actually gonna compare? Because like that's a
Oh,
Slanesh army. That's 2,000 points of Slanesh demons in this bin here.
oh, that's
Um,
out in the other room.
yeah, no,
My
and then
2,500 worth of Slanesh. Yeah.
I don't know if I can actually. So that's all
Oh,
paint. That's all paint down there.
nice, nice,
And then those bins, those are miniatures. Yeah,
solid,
it's my
solid.
husband's messy desk over there.
At least your desks are beside each other. That's totally cool.
Yeah, right.
My wife's like, I'm not coming in there. It
Stuff
smells
might
like
fall
paint.
on me. Yeah.
Oh, like the shelves. I have shelves behind
Yeah.
me that are full I have a yeah.
So if
It's
somebody
a it's
came to you and said, I would like to try painting, would you be able to find something for for them to
Oh, are
do?
you kidding me? I would be able to find something no problem because I know where
Mhm.
everything is. Now, if they came to my wife and said that, she
Yeah,
would say,
no.
"Here's a bucket, take it and get it out of my house."
Love it. Okay, so the next part of the hobby that I actually really enjoy, and I actually do take this into account when I am starting a new army, is the lore.
Mm.
Yeah. So for me, because I am a woman and there's not actually a lot of like female models, I find that like reading stories about the armies that I am considering playing really helps me to like sort of get more into it and get more like I guess in the mindset of a general that might be fielding that kind of force. Um,
Builds that narrative in your head, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm starting orcs right now. So I'm reading through the Beast Arises. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So good.
Right. And I'm reading through the Beast Arises, and I do actually really recommend that if there is an army that or a faction that you're considering buying into, um, maybe pick up a book about it. There's books and short stories about all of the different factions, and that's maybe where I would start too. If you could get
And
emotionally
audiobooks too.
invested. Yes, yes, the
Yeah,
audio
audiobooks
dramas
too.
are amazing.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a
The
really good
Black
place to
Library ones
start.
are really good.
Yes, yes. And I think too, it kind of gives you an idea sometimes about the play style as well. Um, if you want to sort of like get into tactics and stuff like that, some of the books are really good for that. Um, so it might
Some of them
give
are
you
really bad for that too.
some of them are very bad for that.
What
Um,
the heck are they talking about?
but
Yeah.
also some of them are more like kill team sort of
Mm.
level. So those ones are going to give you more character development and less like actual tactics. Um, but yeah, I think that getting invested in the lore of your faction gets you really excited about it and sort of hypes you up to paint it anyway. But do you read
Yeah.
books about your factions?
Oh, I do. There's a great trilogy for the Dark Elder, the Path of the Dark Elder Path series. There's
Hmm.
the Path of the I can't remember what they're called now. They're jumping out of my head. But those are really good. I really enjoyed those. I've written a few as well. Written a few cool short stories about and just stuff about Dark Elder because I really love the lore. Um, but you're right. If you get into the lore a little bit and you start reading some of the stuff that I mean, some of the older stuff, it's been retconned, it's been returned to condition zero so many times and rewritten because this game originally was written by a bunch of dudes in bad mustard stained muscle shirts in the 80s that were, the anti-government, anti-Thatcher movement, and you can appreciate it where they were going with it, and they were really kind of making fun of what would happen if this expanded 40,000 years from now. So some of the stuff you look back and you're like, oh, that's really cringy. But it's changed and it's developed and they've really done a good job of becoming more and more inclusive as well. One of the things that attracted me most to the Eldar and especially the Dark Eldar is that you mentioned that there's not a lot of female characters in the 40K universe. There's more now. The new Sisters of Battle line are fantastic.
Hmm.
They're increasing the presence of obvious gender female characters, which I think is important. But Eldar have always had that.
Yeah.
Eldar have always had that. Eldar have never really, as one of the things that I always loved about it, Eldar models could be male or female. It didn't matter. Um, Eldar Farseers could be male. They could be female. They could be completely gender neutral if you wanted them to. And I loved that about it because it seemed more natural. It made more sense. Here's an evolved race that might be dying, that might be at the end of its existence, but they've realized that the ecclesiarchy of humanity, that is everything is black or white, it's left or right, it must be this. They're like, whatever. You guys are
Hmm.
idiots.
Hmm.
We know that it's all about. You can call them they're almost like space hippies. I mean, elves kind of are because they're all about it's one love, it's one soul, it's one universe, and we're all dying, and we need to protect each other.
Hmm.
And I love that concept of this dying, powerful race. And then the Dark Eldar are like, you know what? We don't need psychic powers. we'll just like feed off of excess because we're so beyond anybody else. And they're just twisted and weird and kind of fun. And I really dug that. I really like that whole, it didn't matter. There's no stratas in society. There's rigid caste systems. I mean, you've got your Phoenix Lords and you've got your aspect shrines and you've got all of this stuff. But as far as that's the only delineation is power in the Dark City is who has more power. And that I thought was a really cool idea. But some people like big chunky space marines blowing stuff away with explosive rounds. There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
We all like Schwarzenegger movies, right?
I love Schwarzenegger movies, actually. Conan, the first
Yeah,
one.
yeah, it's the best.
Best.
It's the best. Fantastic. It's number one best movie of all time. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
But yeah, so if you're not sure where to start, maybe like reading a few short stories, picking a few different factions that seem kind of rule of cool to you, and reading those and see what sticks. That also might give you a little bit more direction on where to go with your army. And then the
Old codexes.
Yes, codex. Oh, the
Old
old
codexes.
codexes have the best lore.
They do. If you can find old codexes, codex is your army book. So that's where all the rules and stuff for your army are in. If you can find the old ones, and typically you can find them cheap because people just get rid of them after they've had them for a few years. They're not rule current. I did another air quote. That's 3. Man, I got to keep my hands down. This is what happens. This is why I'm only the voice on Play on Tabletop, because I talk with my hands too much.
I talk with
but
my
it's, if you can find those old codexes, there's great stories about specific characters, specific battles, specific conflicts and interactions, and you can learn a lot about the faction and how actually the factions evolved from 30 years ago to now. And that's a great way to learn a lot about your favorite army. And honestly, most of the time you can get that stuff for free.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So, like, the last part of the hobby, I think it's the last part. I mean, there's probably more stuff, but the last part of the hobby that I wanted to touch on when choosing an army is play style. And this is the hardest one to sort of look at as a new player and try to pick at, something that fits you. But I always say, like, do you play video games? Right? That's usually where I start with new players. Like, do you play video games? Do you play first-person shooters? If you do, what is your favorite type of weapon? Right? Me,
That's a good one.
I like sniper rifles. So if I would have thought, if before Chaos Space Marines, if I would have sat down and been like, sniper rifle, oh, I like to have a lot of distance between me and the person on the other side of the table, and I like a really long barrel, maybe I should go with something that is better at shooting and better at range. And then I would have picked probably Astra Militarum because I also like tanks.
Tanks are cool.
Tanks are cool.
Tanks are cool.
So, but I didn't have anybody to say that to me at the time. But you know what? If you're somebody who maybe likes an assault rifle, maybe you would like something that's kind of good at mid-range, but also could possibly leave your hands free to have a combat knife. And maybe you should play
Tactical flexibility, yeah.
Space Marines, maybe.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. What do you think about my theory?
I like it because if you're like a shotgun kind of player, then you probably are going to lean to close combat type armies.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like me, who likes to run around with a knife because everybody knows you run faster with a knife,
Exactly.
then you want to get in and hit and then run away. So you've got more of a strike and fade kind of style of play. It's the cool thing right now about where the game sits is each army is capable of playing multiple different play styles. So even if you really love Blood Angels, who are an amazing close combat oriented Space Marine army, you can still play them with long range shooting if you want to. There's not going to be that great at it or as good at it, but you can still have your boys in red drinking from the blood of Sanguinius and shooting las cannons instead of chopping things up with chainswords.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's just take a moment to appreciate the chainsword, because the chainsword, it's a chainsaw on a sword.
Right. Right. I mean, I was sort of talking about this the other day. It's like, if I had a 3D printer, I think the first thing I would do is print a replica bolt pistol and a chainsword. right?
Oh yeah, a chainsword.
And then
I
everybody's
would
like, "Oh
probably
yeah,
go
for
choppa.
cosplay, right?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, cosplay, not just for running around the house like a stupid person."
Are you kidding me? No, for like putting up in the back window of my vehicle. Like you get guys with shotgun racks? No, I got a chainsword in the back of
Yeah,
my truck. That'd be
exactly,
cool.
right? But yeah, in general, some armies are going to be more defensive. Some armies are going to be more offensive. And some armies
Very
are
much
going to
so.
be better at shooting. And some armies are going to be better at close combat. And maybe taking a look at your playstyle. And this is really hard too, because when I first started playing, I thought close combat looks really fun. And it is. Um, but I think if I would have taken a closer look at myself and the way that I actually played video games, I would have realized that that's not actually what I would want to focus on an army. So this one takes a little bit of like looking inward and being really honest with yourself, I think.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think YouTube helps with this a lot though. The
Mhm.
long form, short form battle reports. Oh, I think I want to play Tau, so let's dial up. Oh, these guys are playing Tau, and let's watch how this army plays and see how that works. See
Mhm.
what this play style is like. See how effective it is. Because a lot of times we get caught up too in play style and I want to win. And the first thing that I say to anybody who's picking up this game is don't expect to win. Just don't.
Your first
You're not
20 games
gonna.
don't count.
They don't count.
They
You're
don't
you're
count.
probably not going to win. You're going to get all the rules wrong, and it's okay. I mean, let's face it. We've all been playing Monopoly wrong for years. Free parking is just free parking. You don't get money for free
No,
parking,
you don't.
right? We've all been doing this, but has that ever affected the outcome of anything in the universe? No, you're going to get the rules wrong. You're going to mess up. You're going to make mistakes. Your buddies are going to screw up. It's going to happen. You're going to be sitting around and going, "Oh man, that's not how that works. I totally hosed you, or you totally hosed me." And you know what? It's okay because the game is incredibly complex. And as you go up the ladder, and you can probably speak to this, as you go from sort of the casual player to the competitive player to becoming more interested in that top tier competitive play, the nuances get so much more subtle. Where to place a model, what ranges to measure at. If I've got a 24-inch range on my bolters, I need to make sure that I deploy 25 away so that when I move and he falls back, and then all of these things start happening, and it gets incredibly complex. But when you're sitting with your buddies and you've got like a stack of VHS tapes, remember those as a building? And there's, their drop pod beer cans and you've got whatever you need, that stuff doesn't matter. But
Mhm.
it does change and you're going to evolve. I will guarantee this though, your first army will not be your last. I
No.
absolutely guarantee it.
Yeah. I
So
I
no matter what,
yeah.
buy another one.
I mean, we could do a tips for choosing your second army, but my only tip for choosing your second army is like try to pick something that plays different than your first army, right?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
like after Chaos Space Marines, then I played Space Wolves, which I still have. Um,
Mm,
and that was really fun because I played lots of blood claws, so it's like right up in your face, super aggressive. And then my second army played completely, or my third army played completely differently, and that was Imperial Guard, and that one, it was lots of ranged attacks, obviously, and that one actually is like the fit for me. I think. I mean, I'm going into starting a new orc army, so that one might be the fit for me. You never know, but
The cool thing about orcs though is you can play them like Imperial Guard.
I am
You can
playing them
have
like
orc
Imperial Guard.
artillery. You can have orc artillery, you can have
Yeah.
orc tanks, you can have, and that's the cool part of that's one of my favorite things about orcs is you can really play them any way you want.
Hmm.
But it's also like on our channel, Nick, the Hoofmaster as we call him, they're cows, not fish. He
Whatever.
plays his Tau completely different than any other person on the planet. He
Yeah.
likes close combat Tau. That's not how they work, Nick. His record with that is not very good.
But he's
But
having
he
fun.
loves playing that.
Yeah.
That's it. Like if you ever watch our channel and you watch, that's genuinely how excited Nick gets.
Hmm.
Sometimes we have to turn his mic down because he gets too excited. I'm not kidding. He
I
is
know.
that
I
excited.
know. That's why it's funny.
But he plays his Tau like that.
Hmm.
Completely different. Tack, on the other hand, has a very specific style of play on our channel. He plays gunline / castles, which means group your army up together and shoot a lot. And he has Ultramarines that way. He's got AdMech that way, or Adeptus Mechanicus. and he plays a very specific list. So it's in the player to build the list the way you want it to. And it's one of the things with 9th edition right now is you really can do that, which is kind of cool. You're not going to have a box of something you painted and go, I'm never going to use these, because they can always be basing material. They can always get strapped to the hoods of Lehman Russ tanks or ground up in the treads. Those are fun too.
Is there anything else that I missed, do you think?
I hope we hit it all. I hope we got it all. I hope it helps, because we've talked about what the rule of cool. We've talked about how they play. We've talked about don't be afraid to test. Don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to reach out.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what else.
And when it comes to play style, those people who have tables full of multiple armies are more than likely okay with doing some small demo games with you, where you can try out a few different armies and see how they play and see what actually sticks with you. So yeah, reach out to those people and see if they can help you out. Most people are really, really nice, and most people are really, really excited that they might have a new person to play with, and they're really just wanting to make your transition into the hobby as easy as possible. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions. Like you said, don't be afraid to ask questions. There are no dumb questions, really.
Unless it's about Tau. I'm kidding. I like Tau.
Jeez. I actually really like Tau. Yeah. Funny enough, they would actually suit my playstyle, I think.
They would. I was tempted to start a Tau army, simply because I wanted to paint them all like classic 70s and 80s Japanese anime robots.
Ooh.
And then one of the guys in our Play on Tabletop Discord server has actually done that. He's started painting. I think he's got his breachers are started to be painted like the ones from the show was called Pat Labor. Fantastic giant patrol labor. Oh yeah, it's totally cool and totally 80s and totally old. But I thought that would look really kind of cool. But then the thing that's amazing about this hobby is I literally have projects that I have started 4, 5, 6 years ago that I haven't got to yet. Concepts for projects that I've started fleshing out, and ideas that have started coming. And that's what I love about it now is I don't even care about whether I play the army or not. Is this going to look cool when I'm finished with it? And it just changes. It's really cool. And even if this model that I'm working on right now isn't going to see the tabletop, it's probably going to be on the display board that I bring to a tournament. It might be just sitting on my shelf, and people are going to go, "Oh, is that like an orc Santa Claus?" I have an orc Santa Claus, by the way. Boar Boys and the guy. It's just so cool. But there's stuff like that you're going to build, you're going to make, and that's where the magic in the hobby is you can take it to anywhere you want to take it. You play with your friends. You can just build and paint yourself. You can go to tournaments. You can do whatever you want to with it. But it is such an amazingly cool hobby. I've literally been playing this for 35 years. My 14-year-old son plays it now. It's like the coolest thing. I got him into Warhammer so that he wouldn't get into drugs because he won't have any money for it.
It's true.
That meme is so true.
It's so true.
But I'm the guy who keeps buying the stuff.
What did he pick?
Hey, dude, check this out. Yeah.
What did he pick for his first army?
Space Wolves.
Nice.
Space Wolves. Okay, funny story. I have to share this because every Dark Angel player out there is going to laugh.
Okay.
I asked him when he was about 8 or 9. I said, "Did you want to play?" And he said, "Yeah, I'd like to play." I said, "Well, what army do you want?" He says, "I think I want Space Marines." Okay, I get it. I mean, big, stompy, Halo-like, whatever. That's cool. I said, "Well, which Space Marines do you want?" He says, "What are the dark green ones?" I said, "Well, there's 2. There's Dark Angels and there's Salamanders." Now, he's 8. He doesn't understand any of the lore yet. Dad hasn't filled his head full yet.
Yeah.
At 8 years old, he says, "Aren't Dark Angels chaos, Dad?" And I just went, oh man.
If you're new to the hobby, look at that one. Look into that one.
Every old timer out there is going to be going, wow, the force is strong with that one.
I mean, I feel like a story about Dark Angels actually being chaos is a great way to end the entire thing.
I'm sorry, every Dark Angel player out there. I'm so sorry.
I'm not.
Their new rules look absolutely amazing, though. And that's the thing too, is we talk a lot about how to pick your army, how to choose it. Warhammer community, they're killing it. They really are. There's so much cool stuff out there. And honestly, like we said, ask.
Yeah.
Just ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get people asking in our chats all the time. And how do I pick my first army? What do I do? What looks cool? Like that's the first question we always ask.
Yep.
What do you like?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the video game analogy though. I'm going to use that from now on. I'm totally
Right.
stealing it. It's now mine.
Yeah, do it. I'm throwing it out to the universe. If you are not a new player, if you are a veteran, a seasoned pro, and you have people who are asking you how to start a new army or whatever, I really like. I understand where Rule of Cool comes from. I think it's not truly helpful though. But you know what? The video game analogy has been working for me. So
It works. It
steal
makes a
it.
ton of sense. I really like it. I
Yeah.
really dig it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to cut it there. I think that this has been a really fun episode. And if there are people watching who want any other questions answered in regards to this, make sure to leave them in the comments down below. I answer every single one. So let me know if you have any questions. I love to help out new players. Do you have anything that you wanna end with there, JT?
You know what? I want to thank you for having me on. I really loved sitting and chatting with you. I really dig what you're doing. Be nice and roll dice is such an incredibly positive message that it gets lost a lot of times out there. So many tactical battle reports. There's so many how to play this army and win, and how to kick this guy in the nuts, and I hate that crap. It has its purpose, and yeah, it's there. But be nice, roll dice is such an absolutely important thing to just. It's a great mantra to live by, and I really dig what you're doing, and I'm so happy that I was able to be on your show. I thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, JT. Do you have any great stories about choosing your first army, or do you have any questions that we didn't get answered in this video? Make sure to leave them down below in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell. I stream 2 times a week on Twitch, and I do daily updates to Instagram. And until next time, everybody, be nice and roll dice.